Hi viewers, in this video we will see printing the hill pattern with nested for loop using Python programming. This is the pattern we need to print. Here the number of rows are 5 and the number of columns are 9. Let us analyze the given pattern. This is the pattern we need to analyze and this is the hill that we need to print. Let us divide the given pattern based on our convenience. This is one decreasing triangle with spaces for better understanding and visualization. Instead of empty space and underscore symbols are used. And this is the increasing triangle with 5 cross 5 order, and it is also increasing triangle with the order 4 cross 4. This is the code that we are going to use to print the given pattern. First line receives the data from the user. The first for loop will decide the number of lines to be printed. The first inner for loop will decide the number of spaces to be printed. The second for loop will decide the number of stars to be printed in the second triangle, and the third inner for loop will decide the number of stars to be printed in the third triangle. One empty print function so as to start printing the patterns in a new line after completing the outer for loop. Enter the number of rows by using an input function. Convert that into integer by using int function, and the value is assigned to n. Let us assume that the value of n is equal to 5. Now the range of a will be 1 to 6. This is the outer for loop. This loop will iterate for 6 times. First inner for loop will have the range a to n. So the range is 1 to 5, and this will iterate for 4 times. During each iteration, one space will be added. First iteration, second iteration, third iteration. After completing the fourth iteration, now the execution will goes to second inner for loop. The second inner for loop is having the range 1 to a plus 1. Here the range is 1 to 2. It will iterate only for one time and one star will be printed. The execution will goes to third inner for loop and it doesn't iterates. Empty print function is executed. The cursor will move to new line. The value of a is incremented by 1. Now it is 2. The range of b is 2 to 5. It will iterate for 3 times. During each iteration, one space is added in the output. 3 iterations, 3 spaces in the output. The execution will goes to second inner for loop and it will have the range 1 to 3. This will iterate for 2 times. During each iteration, one star will be added. Second iteration, one more star is added. Now the execution will goes to third inner for loop and it will have the range 1 to 2 and it will iterate only for one time, and hence one star will be printed in the output. Empty print function is executed. The cursor will move to third line. The value of a is incremented by 1. The value of a is 3. The b will have the range 3 to 5. It will iterate only for 2 times. During each iteration, one space is added to the third line. The execution will comes to inner second for loop and it will have the range 1 to 4 and it will iterate for 3 times. During each iteration, one star is printed in the output. Now the execution will comes to third inner for loop and it will have the range 1 to 3. It will iterate for 2 times. During each iteration, one star is printed. Print function is executed. The cursor will move to fourth line. The value of a is incremented by 1. Now the value of a is 4. The range of b is 4 to 5. It will iterate only for one time. One space is added to the fourth line. The second inner for loop will have the range 1 to 5. It will iterate for 4 times. During each iteration, one star will be printed. Third iteration, 3 stars. Fourth iteration, 4 stars. Now the execution will comes to third inner for loop. It will have the range 1 to 4. It will iterate for 3 times. During each iteration, one star is added. Finally, 3 stars is added by the third inner for loop. Print function is executed. The cursor will move to fifth line. The value of a is incremented by 1. Now the value of a is 5. The first inner for loop will have the range 5 to 5. Hence it will not execute. The execution will comes to second inner for loop. It will have the range 1 to 6. It will iterate for 5 times. During each iteration, 1 star is printed. Due to second inner for loop, 5 stars are added in the output. Fifth iteration, 5 stars. Next, the execution will comes to third inner for loop. It will have the range 1 to 5. This loop will iterate for 4 times. During each iteration, 1 star is printed in the output. Because of third inner for loop, 4 stars are added in the output. Finally, print function is executed. The cursor will move to next line, and this is the final output that you are going to get with this code.